Hey writers, we have a lot to cover today, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. This week we actually have two skills that we're working on. The first skill is going to be called Subject-Verb Agreement. So what we need to remember is what a subject is and also what a verb is. Now I know we've done a lot of work with verbs this year so far, so who can tell me what a verb is? If you said a verb is a word that shows an action, you would be correct, okay? So we're going to review really quickly what a subject in a sentence is and how we can make sure that they agree or work together, okay? All right, so let's look right here at the introduction. It says the subject of a sentence tells whom or what the sentence is about, okay? So a subject is really the who or the what you're talking about, right? A subject can tell about one or more than one person, place, or thing. Do you remember what it's called when you talk about more than one thing? Very good. It's plural. So you could talk about one person, place, or thing, or you can make it plural and talk about more than one. Now, the verb in the sentence must agree or match the number of the subject. So the subject can be singular or it can be plural, but what's most important is that your verb matches, okay? So let's look at some example sentences. Let's look at how we can make sure our subject and verb agree, and then we're going to do some practice on your own, okay? So here's an example of a sentence. It says, Kenji writes poems for a hobby. So if you ask yourself, who or what is this sentence about, then you would have found your subject. And if you said the sentence was about Kenji, then you would be correct. Okay? Now, a verb is something that you do, so you need to ask yourself, well, what is Kenji doing? If you said Kenji writes, you would be correct. So Kenji is your subject, and you'll notice how many Kenjis are there? There's only one. Since there's only one Kenji, we have to add an S to the end of the verb, which is what you see right here. Okay? So when your subject, there's one of them, then you add an S to the end of your verb. Okay? So let's come try this sentence. All right, read this sentence with me. Ready, set, read. His brothers write songs. So let's see if we can find our subject. Who or what is this sentence about? If you said brothers, you would be correct. Now let's ask yourself, what are these brothers doing? If you said they write, you would be correct. So we have our subject, brothers, and our verb, write. Now you'll notice brothers has an S here on the end. That means that brothers is plural. There's more than one of them. If there's an S on the end of your subject, then guess what? Your verb does not need an S. So that's usually the rule that we follow. Okay? All right, so let's review that rule one more time. If the subject has an S, then there's no S on the verb. If the subject doesn't have an S, then the verb does. That's the easiest way to make sure that your subject and verb agree. Okay, now sometimes you have to add S, sometimes you have to add ES, sometimes you have to change the Y to an I, and then add ES, but at the end of the day, if your subject has an S, don't put an S on the verb. If the subject doesn't have an S, put an S on the verb, okay? Now sometimes you don't have to do anything to the verb. So if your subject is a plural noun or a pronoun, like I, you, we, or they, don't touch the verb. So sometimes I help Tara too. Who is this sentence about? I. What am I doing? Help. Don't do anything to it. The trains always look beautiful. What are we talking about? The trains. What do the trains do? Look. Don't touch the verb because it's a plural subject. Okay? All right, so remember this rule. If the subject has an S, there's no S on the verb. If the subject doesn't have an S, then the verb does. Okay? So let's use this rule to help us do some practice. All right? The first sentence, now you'll notice there's no answers here, but when the question pops up, you'll have some answer choices to pick the correct verb to complete each sentence. So the first sentence says, Jim blank a new toy. The first thing you need to find in this sentence is the subject. So ask yourself, who is this sentence about? If you said the sentence is about Jim, you would be correct. Okay? So you need to look at Jim. Does the subject have an S or does it not have an S? It doesn't have an S, so that means the verb does. So which of the verbs correctly completes this sentence? If you pick the verb wants, Jim wants a new toy, you would be correct. Okay? Let's go to number 2. Read it with me. Ready, set, read. The girl blank out her window. All right, first things you need to find is the subject. So what's the subject of the sentence? Good. If you said girl, you would be correct. So look at girl. Does the subject have an S or does it not have an S? It doesn't have an S, so which verb would correctly complete this sentence? If you put the girl looks out her window, you would be correct. All right, last one, number 3. You blank beautiful. What's the subject of the sentence? If you said you would be correct. Now remember, you has a special rule. If you have a plural noun or a pronoun, I, you, we, or they, you don't touch the verb. So which verb would correctly complete this sentence? If you chose look, you would be correct. Okay? Now remember when you all take your test on these language skills, this will be at the top, okay? Use it to help you find your answers. And remember the rule that we came up with. The subject has an S, no S on the verb. Subject doesn't have an S, put an S on that verb. Okay? Now it is time for you to do your scoot. Okay? You're going to have 6 cards at your table. And what you can do is you can kind of scoot to chair or from card to card. And you can complete each card. You have to pick the correct verb to complete the sentence, and all you have to do in each box is to write the verb. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to complete that activity, and then we're going to come back together and go over the pronoun antecedent. Okay? All right, so let's go over the pronoun antecedent. Okay? Now, the pronoun antecedent kind of ties in to your subject-verb agreement because you have to look at the subject again, okay? Now, let's review what a pronoun is. A pronoun takes the place of a noun. The pronouns must agree or match the number of the nouns they replace. So, if I'm talking about myself, I would say me. Or if I was talking about someone, I would say I. If I'm talking about someone else, I have you. So here's your pronouns. I, you, he, she, it, me, him, and her. And if you have a plural pronoun where there's more than one person or thing, you'd have we, you, they, us, and them. Okay, so here's an example. My mother studies weather. So you have to look at mother. Well, I know mother is a female, so it can be he or him. I know that there is one mother, so we call a singular female she. So my mother studies weather. She, which agrees with mother, is a hurricane expert. Okay? Mom works with Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan, look at that Mr. I know it's not a she or a her. There's one of them. So I would say mom gives him advice. Okay? Plural, so hurricanes. There's more than one thing here. Well, it's not a boy, it's not a girl. So it would be an it, but there's more than one. So hurricanes are powerful. They knock trees over. Okay? Or you have scientists study storms. People must prepare for them. Okay? So you just have to make sure that the noun in the first sentence, when you replace it with a pronoun, it matches the number and if it's a boy or a girl or a thing. So let's do some practice. And if you notice, I took the same sentences from our subject-verb agreement and I added onto them to see if you can replace the noun with a pronoun. So Jim wants a new toy. Blank decided to get a stuffed bear. What is the noun in the first sentence? If you said Jim, you would be correct. So now you need to figure out what pronoun would correctly replace Jim. And if you said he, you would be correct. So Jim wants a new toy. He decided to get a stuffed bear. Okay, let's go to sentence number 2. Read it with me. Ready, set, read. The girl looks out her window. Blank saw a bird. What is the noun in the first sentence? If you said girl, you would be correct. And which pronoun would match the noun girl? If you said she, you would be correct. So the sentence would read, the girl looks out her window. She saw a bird. Okay? Number 3. Ready, set, let's read. Tara and Jill found beautiful beads. Blank decided to make bracelets. What is the noun in this first sentence? If you said Tara and Jill, you would be correct. So what pronoun would match Tara and Jill? If you said they, you would be correct. Tara and Jill found beautiful beads. They decided to make bracelets. Okay? All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to complete a foldable. So I want you to go grab a foldable for yourself and your group, and we're going to work through some examples together. All right, so here's how your foldable should look. I want you to go ahead and fold each of the flaps so that you have your sentences under the flaps. Mine's a little torn. To complete your foldable, okay? All right, put your name at the top, your number in the circle, and then we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? The first thing that a pronoun has to agree with is the number of people. So if you open your flap and you look at this first sentence, let's read it together. Ready, set, read. Bob and I went shopping. Okay, let's read the second sentence. Blank got a lot of new clothes. There should be an S there on the bottom. Okay, if you look at the first sentence, what is the noun or the nouns in this first sentence? If you said Bob and I, you would be correct. So take your pencil and underline your nouns, Bob and I. Now, when you talk about somebody else and I, which is you, what pronoun do we use to replace them? If you said we, you would be correct, because we includes someone else and yourself. So it would be Bob and I went shopping. We got a lot of new clothes. Okay? And then when I finish this video, you can go back and do the second one on your own. All right? Now, a pronoun should also agree with a person. So let's do the first one under this flap together. Yeah. All right, here we go. Okay, the first sentence. Let's read these first two sentences. Ready, set, read. The clock tells time. Blank runs fast. So look at this first sentence. What is the noun in the first sentence? If you said clock, you would be correct. So what pronoun could I use to replace a clock? If you said it, you would be correct. So the clock tells time, it runs fast. And you have another sentence you could do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let you do the first, finish under the first flap, the second flap, and then you can also do the third flap, and yours probably is not right, to show that it agrees with the gender of a noun, whether it's a boy or a girl. Please make sure that for all of these, you underline the noun in the first sentence to help you identify the pronoun in the next sentence, okay? All right, good luck. And remember, if you have any questions, the people in your group are